Terry, my boy,
Uh,
how are you?
I'm good.
Listen,
How are you?
I'm all right. Where exactly are you at career-wise right now?
I feel like I'm starting all over again, but this time kind of on my own terms. I'm still able to continue to do what I love most, which is, helping people get from zero to one, right? Whether it's an artist or whether it's someone trying to start a business or, whether it's through these platforms that we're building, whether it's, like a creator coming onto our platform and being able to make $100 from through her or his creativity. It's all about helping a creativity go from this place to that place, right? So I think I'm able to do that beyond just music. I feel like I'm in a good place because I've been able to take these 25 years of experience and really take it and give it back, right, to all kinds of people now, to even people that I don't know personally, right? Like right before I got on this call, I was talking to like my product team, and they were telling me about how like we have like a couple hundred of beat makers that came from Mexico onto our platform, and like that music's amazing, right? And these are people that 18, 19-year olds in a bedroom with a computer somewhere making music, and now they're able to put their beats on a platform and find, say, a young rapper in Taiwan or in Hong Kong, all across the Pacific, people coming together making music and still being able to get paid for their creativity using blockchain. So I think it's the same thing as, like whether it was kind of putting together a band when I was 20, it was, maybe back in the days I was trying to help three people get from one place to another, but now I'm able to take all that experience and kind of put it into a larger scale.
Well, you just probably described what OneTeam is trying to do.
Okay.
You know, my new
Yeah.
project, which is,
Yeah, I know.
I think things have become too scattered, and there's like no focus.
Right.
We talked about social media. What are your thoughts about social media?
I think the first generation of social media is over, right?
Game over.
The Facebooks, the Instagram, the whole like, self elevation, self promotion, shameless self promotion. That era is, I think people are tired of it, and I think I think we've arrived at this point where social media was indeed so successful over the last decade that we've created an entire generation that doesn't tend to live in reality, or parts of a generation that doesn't tend to live in reality. And so I think on that note, social media can be kind of toxic. But at the same time, what are the benefits of social media? I mean, you know, when I was younger, I mean, think about it, Hans. Like if I was 20 and you were 20 years younger, right? And we had YouTube and Instagram, and when we were doing what we wanted to do, I'm sure we could have done some damage too.
Let's go do some damage.
Right. So in that way, as providing that accessibility, right, to large amounts of people, I think that was, what social media did. But the culture that it kind of bred, it has kind of led me to observe that, you can kind of live in your social media world, and then after a while you become desensitized with your own reality. So for example, you might have 500,000 followers on Instagram, right? But these followers are not necessarily fans, and they're definitely not necessarily friends. Do you know what I mean? Like this is something I learned. So like about 10 years ago, I was at Sony. And this was the time when like there was Gangnam Style, and there was a lot of EDM, and K-pop was really becoming a thing. And so I remember one of the first records that I did as a head of A&R at Sony was I put out this boy band, and I what I did was I had gone against every conventional style of writing Chinese lyrics, of doing like Chinese dance music, And I wrote something that was it was fresh, and you know, I think it worked very well with a certain audience. But when I looked on YouTube, I had like 20,000 likes, but then 20,000 dislikes. And so I was like, oh, this is not good. And I went to the artist manager and I was like, oh, I don't know if my first decision in this label was a big boo-boo. And he told me, he was like, no. He's like, you need that. You need, and he's like, go look at all the viral songs online. They're not 90% like, you know, 1%, 10% dislike. They're all 50-50. And you know, that, what do you call it? That conflict is really what social media is about. Like, I don't know if that's healthy or not, but so what I'm trying to say is you could have a lot of people who are following you, who are observing what you're saying on social media, but they are not necessarily people that support you. There's a lot of people that follow people to watch them kind of, you know, destroy themselves online. I've seen that happen before too. So
haters gonna hate. I laugh cause you fake. Lawyer mad cause I do something that you can't.
so my thoughts on social media are muddled. I'm 50-50, but I do think that we're moving into a new era as we move into the next age of the internet. The idea of digital ownership, right? So we're not going to the public town square anymore to sell what we're selling. Like, we can literally kind of own pieces of the internet through new technology. And I think this will allow people to have more direct interactions and more pure interactions. And I think that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. And that's where I spend a good amount of my work now.
I also have a problem with people clicking that like button.
Yeah.
When they don't even mean it. And what that does to me is it gives people false hope. And I think that's dangerous because you can become a legend in your own lunchtime.
Yeah, I use that phrase until today.
I
It's
think
one of
I
the
probably
most
told
useful
you,
phrases that I
Terry,
learned.
don't fucking be a legend in your own lunchtime.
Yes, I never forgot that. I tell people that all the time too. I'm like, look at his legend in his own lunchtime.
Mm, mm.
You're right. You know, this is the silos that social media creates, right? And that's what I mean. Like, so that's the downside of social media. And the upside of the social media is, you know, we couldn't even do something like that back in the day, right? So I don't know. I mean, in some ways, we've democratized access, but what is the consequence of that?
And I look at what McCartney's doing now.
Mhm.
He uses social media,
Mhm.
but it's number one, it's Paul McCartney, so it's
Yeah.
forgivable, right? He's like 80 years old, but it's cool. But other people use social media, and I'm talking about these legacy acts, but it's not cool. So there's something very uncool about social media these days to me.
So, Hans, what you're saying is like something you like, right?
Mm.
Paul McCartney's social media activities is a consequence of Paul McCartney being Paul McCartney. But a lot of people today, who they are is a consequence of what they have to do on social media or what they're doing on social media. So it's like you're kind of doing these things that aren't you, and then eventually whatever people likes, that becomes you, right? So you become a consequence of your own social media, whereas Paul McCartney's the other way around.
But don't you feel that we're waiting for a white knight of music to come riding in and save us?
So let's put it this way: in the last 20 years, or let's put it this way, this century, who do you think is the most pivotal artist of the century so far?
I go back to who I think were game changers, Talking Heads, David Byrne, Todd Rundgren. In their own way, the Beatles, they were making music videos before they were music videos. So don't you think what they created was an interest in music, which you don't get now?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, I think when you've academically introduced the Beatles to me, right? So more than whatever I'd heard as a child, it became very obvious to me. And I still have this book, which is the Abbey Road recordings from 1962 to 64 or something. And I was flipping through it the other day, and I thought about it. I was like, the Beatles essentially invented pop music and pop culture. Probably pop culture more than music, because music has just evolved into so many different genres, and that's a very subjective conversation. But I think
No, but
as far as
that's very good pop culture because
modern
sorry
day
to
pop culture.
there's no pop culture right now.
Yeah.
Do you think there is?
Or if you think about it, before the Beatles, there wasn't really too. I mean, I don't think you can say Frank Sinatra was pop culture. I don't think you can even say Elvis was pop culture. They were just popular singers.
Yeah, Buddy Holly, etc. Right? But
yeah, they were
I
just
don't
really
think
good singers.
yeah, but I don't think the Beatles went out trying to create a culture.
They
The
put
culture built around them.
This was known as counterculture back in those days, right? So so this pop culture, I mean, so much of today is counterculture. I mean, TikTok itself is counterculture, right? You know what I mean?
You think so, man? Why
Oh,
is
not in that
counterculture?
not in the 60s. I mean, what I'm saying is TikTok as an environment, right, allows people to just express the most like WTF concepts and ideas and forms of expression. I'm not saying that it's good. Like I'm not using the same, I'm not comparing apples to apples here. So maybe it's a little different. But what I'm saying is in my looking back in history, I don't think that there was any form of counterculture before the Beatles. What the Beatles did was it created a precedent that counterculture was acceptable and it should be encouraged. And therefore, I would say that's how they invented modern day counterculture, or they carved a place for counterculture to exist in the world.
The Beatles happened the same time as David Bailey, the photographer, the movie called Blow Up, which was about the 60s and the quote unquote counterculture. There were models like Twiggy, Gene Shrimpton. So it was a combination of the arts. It was independent filmmakers, it was photographers, it was fashion models, and it was music. I mean, other than the Beatles, there was Donovan, there were the Stones, the Yardbirds, independent filmmakers. It was one cohesive whole. And right now, that cohesive whole isn't there. I don't know where the young filmmakers are and why they're not working with young musicians to create.
First of all, I believe they're out there, and second of all, to go back to the first question that you asked me, I think the reason why we can't find that next white knight, so to speak, is because there's just so much content on the internet now. There's an exponential amount of content compared to that one person, right? And that's what social media and the internet has done. It's created this huge explosion of content, right, in the 21st century. And I just think it's so hard for us to actually find these really things. I'm not saying they don't exist. If you look hard enough, you'll probably find it, but I don't think it's not able to compete with all the noise on the internet. So people are not able to discover it as fast as, say 60 years ago. And I think that's something that I definitely think that's an issue that should be addressed.
Is it content or is it clutter?
Good question. Clutter is content, if that's a word. I mean, I gotta be honest, right? Like, I think the definition of content has changed from 20 years ago. definitely changed from 40 years ago, right? You know, what was that song? Radio killed the video star, but YouTube killed your VCR, right? So in that similar way that video killed the radio star, YouTube's killed the video star, but at the same time, you know, like say 30 years ago, like if you wanted to do a TV show, you needed so much resources and you needed all these channels or you needed access to these channels. But today, someone with a phone with a good enough idea can put that content up on the internet. So I think that the quality or it really depends on what standards of content we're talking about here.
Well, I mean, how do people even find this content amongst all the clutter?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's hard, right?
It's impossible. Look at Spotify. It's an audio medium built on streamings. You're a new artist. You upload your music on Spotify. How are you going to be recognized?
Algorithms.
How are people going to even find you?
Algorithms. You can't. You're at the mercy of algorithms. Like what? Same thing with YouTube. Same thing with social media.
So, are we both saying there's no hope?
No. I think I definitely think there's hope. That's why I think the next iteration of the internet, you're gonna come full circle. So, for example, do you remember like when in the early 2000s, like, you know, we were dealing with MP3s and people were moving to Napster and people weren't buying physical records. Physical vinyl is the fastest selling music merchandise in the last 5 years, and it's growing year on year, right? People are coming back to that because it's like, now that you've given me all the content in the world, you know, I have this huge information overload. It's like, I just want things that are simple. Like, we're human beings and we have only, you know, a capacity to absorb so much. And I think at some point we're going to start reinventing ways for us to come back to certain norms that just feel right. You know, like, I pay for YouTube every month, right? I don't have to watch ads. And you know, maybe 15 years ago, I would have been like, wow, I can watch music videos on here. Today, I watch everything, and I don't even know what I'm really watching anymore.
What am I watching? I don't know, but I hate it.
It's like I don't cherish all this unlimited access, or I don't need it. It's just too much.
So what's going on in Terry world today?
Today, I sit back. A lot of the times, you know, if I am recording, I'm probably playing the role of a recording engineer, right? With a lot of young people kind of teaching me what they're doing, and then I'm just regurgitating what you used to teach me. Like, I was talking about lyrics and irony about 2 weeks ago, and yeah, I'm still pretty much doing the same thing. Just you know, like I mentioned earlier, I do it for more people now, right? So I jump between different teams of people every day, and if you ask me to simplify what I do every day, is that every day I wake up and I just figure out how to serve the people I work with.
Okay, we got 5 minutes. We go one word, you tell me what comes to mind.
Okay.
Our first meeting.
Hyatt.
Urban Exchange.
Beginnings.
Meeting Pharrell and Shay.
The word would be Tokyo, and then embedded in Tokyo is a lot of things.
Parking Lot Pimp.
Life-changing.
And my favorite track of all time, Blow. What the fuck were you thinking of when you produced that? It's an amazing track.
Yeah. So we were at a time where, I think, we were having a lot of conversations, I was flying out to Hong Kong, meet you a lot, and I was learning a lot of new music. And I think I just had my first 3-4 years in the music industry, and I had like a little bit of success, but I was getting kind of stale with it. So I just wanted to push whatever limits I had, right? But I've never produced like a rock bass track. So while I was producing that track, I had to learn how to record different styles of guitars, different styles of drums, right? How to capture sounds that I may have taken for granted when I listened to other records, but I couldn't seem to get out myself. So I don't think it really turned out to be a rock track. I don't really know what genre it is, but it was kind of like it was me sonically breaking out of my shell for the first time.
Was I a good mentor?
Absolutely.
Why?
The best. Because I think the greatest thing was you never stopped me from trying things, but you were always there to make sense of it with me. And of course, a mentee has to go into it with the right mindset. But I think, like most people I know and their mentors their mentors seem to be like, this is how you do it, this is how you do it, this is how you do it. Whereas our relationship was never really like, this is how you do it. It was like, why the fuck would you want to do that? But go ahead and do it, and let's talk to you tomorrow. And then you would kind of break it down with me. So there was an ability to kind of learn through self-discovery as well, right? And then what I found most interesting was you were always able to connect every lesson or every situation I was with to some story, right? And those stories have impacted me that to the point where I still tell them today, the simple concept of how like George Martin and Paul McCartney were experimenting with things like delays and stuff, things that we take for granted now today as musicians because we have plugins and stuff like that. But what you were essentially saying was these people were so ahead of their time, they weren't just using what was given to them, they were using what was given to them to get what was not given to them. And I think as a creator, that's really important, right? So I'm really glad that was a standard that you set for me when I was like 21, 22, that I always realized that creativity wasn't just about taking these tools you have and just creating something, 1 + 1 = 2, but it was always about like 1 + 1 should equal 7, right? So most people or most creative people are 1 + 1 = 2. But I think, the way that you broke down these stories and context of certain examples that you did when I was younger helped me realize that real creativity is 1 + 1 = 7.
Good. I'm happy I was able to help.
That was a great conversation.
It was good.
Wonderful.
It was good. Very inspiring.
Oh,
all right, Terry. You
I'll
take care.
call you on WhatsApp.
Sure.
All right. Okay. Bye-bye.